Secretary.
And that brings us to the end of Prime Minister's questions, not just for today, but for this summer. Parliament going down for the summer recess next week, not back till September the 6th, so our next PMQs will be on September the 8th. Nick Clegg was there, much made of him supposedly being the first Liberal to take PMQ since Lloyd George. We think there's only one flaw in that observation, which is that Lloyd George didn't do Prime Minister's questions, because it's a relatively new invention. But we know that you'll put us right on that, and we wait to hear from you on these emails. What emails have we had so far?
They'll come flooding in, won't they? Well, we've got contrasting opinions here about who performed well and who didn't, but generally people were a little disappointed, I think, by the performances today. Stuart Tunstead from Plymouth actually thought Nick Clegg performed admirably at PMQs today, although that was rather easy against a fumbling Jack Straw, who resorted to belated campaign barracking. Graham Pack from Bushey, Hertfordshire, agreed poor showing by Jack Straw, a load of rambling comments rather than hard-hitting questions. But Carl Graham in London says Nick Clegg and his party have become completely ineffective in this coalition and have lost their moral compass. And Abel says the Speaker quite rightly stopped the Deputy Prime Minister waffling on. Keep it up, Mr Speaker. But Lee Robinson from Swindon in Wiltshire says Speaker Burko, he's been doing a lot of interrupting, saying that the comments, answers, remarks, etc. are too long. But where does this and censorship begin?
That's your comments. It was kind of long, rambling questions and long, rambling replies.
Well, I thought Nick Clegg did pretty well, really.
Yeah.
It's his first time doing this sort of thing. It's pretty nerve-wracking, and I thought he did pretty well. He was obviously in a tricky spot over Sheffield Forge Masters, and actually I thought those exchanges illustrated the benefit of Prime Minister's questions, which are often dismissed as just a sort of glorified bun fight. But there are very few other opportunities for that kind of forensic questioning, which I think in that respect, I think Jack Straw did quite well.
Now, we were doing our homework during PMQs, and we've now discovered, Joe and I, through the mysteries of the computer, I've discovered that Sheffield Forge Masters, which actually goes way back to Vickers, I hadn't realised it. It's got a long, long pedigree. They claim to be the oldest steel manufacturers in the world. It was subject to a management buyout, which means that the management must have raised a ton of debt to buy the company. And so the chief executive is now saying that, contrary to what Mr. Clegg had said, that he would have been prepared to dilute his holding, and I assume the holding of other managers. And that is the question that Mr. Clegg was not able to answer.
He wasn't. And the extraordinary thing is that this has been in the media in the last 24 hours. So surely he must have thought about it. The truth is he's in a very difficult position. He said something to the House of Commons, so did the Prime Minister, which was different to what they had said in private. And this matters for two reasons. One is you are not meant to say different things in the House of Commons to what you say in private, in letters. And secondly, this loan is crucially important. This was all about whether this company supplies the steel for Britain's nuclear industry. So it's not a small loan to a small company. It's of great strategic importance. And I think Jack Straw pinned Nick Clegg on this, and I don't think it's an issue the Labour Party will let go of.
Has it got legs?
I think it potentially does, and as John has just revealed, no surprise perhaps, Labour is not going to let go of this easily. They have their bit between their teeth on this issue for two very good reasons. Firstly, this affects Nick Clegg's own constituents. It's a Sheffield company.
He's a Sheffield MP.
It's particularly difficult for him politically. The other thing is it goes right to the heart of what they keep trying to pin on the Lib Dems is the cuts that they have allowed to go through in selling their soul to go into the coalition goes the Labour narrative. And we've seen since the coalition started that Labour have very clearly been pinning their fire at the Lib Dems rather than at the Conservatives. These are all the shouts, you've sold your soul, you've sold out, and Sheffield Forge Masters plays into that very neatly.
What I'm not clear on, though, John Denham, is that, I mean, again, reading the website of this company, it boasts that it's not only got a full order book, it has the biggest order book in the history of the company. And I think the company started, when was it, in the late 18th century?
It was.
1780 or something like that. If it's got a full order book, if the company's booming, why can't it raise the money from the markets? Why does it need us, the taxpayer, to finance it?
I'm not going to pretend to know the details of the loan because I was never involved in it. What I do know is that the decision on the loan went through those very tough criteria that business ministers and treasury ministers have to meet before you can actually make a commercial loan to a commercial company. So I think the rest of us have to take it for granted. This wasn't some sort of political check writing. This was actually a process of assessing something that was in the national interest and of great national importance to do.
I think one of the question marks would be if it's already got a lot of debt because of the management. Management buyouts are always done. They're debt-financed buyouts because the management, by definition, hasn't got the capital. If it's then going to take on more government debt, there could have been a danger that this very successful company just got avalanched by debt.
Well, that's right, but we're speculating. aren't
Exactly, we don't know.
And to be fair, Andrew, none of those answers were given by Nick Clegg.
No, that's true. And PMQs did not really, it didn't answer these things, but it did raise an issue, didn't it?
It did, absolutely. It reminded people of this issue that had been rumbling on. A couple of the Labour leadership candidates tried to pile into it yesterday, but here we have it being raised in a very high-profile setting. Labour aren't going to let go of this, and there will be demands, I would imagine, for the paperwork to be published, for that letter that Nick Clegg wrote to the Chief Executive, where they had that exchange about whether or not he was willing to put his own cash up for the company. So I think this will continue to run, and it's very awkward for Nick Clegg, and he didn't give a straight answer to the question.
And as John Denham says, he wasn't prepared for an answer to the obvious
And they knew
question.
it was going to come up, because talking to people this morning, they knew it was going to come up, and there was a kind of chatter, a sense this morning there might possibly be some kind of fix in the offing. That was vehemently denied by the business department this morning, but this has been doing the rumour mill and the smoke signals this morning. They knew this might come up.
Okay, we'll see what's